Hi everyone, in this video we are going to look at Next.js version 13.4 and explore all the new features, including the app directory, server components, data fetching, layout, loading, error handling, and more. Additionally, we will learn about Prisma and MongoDB and how to connect with them. Lastly, I will show you how to connect Next.js with Prisma and MongoDB. These technologies offer powerful tools for building data-driven applications, and I will guide you through the process of integration. Whether you are new to Next.js or a seasoned user, this video will keep you up to date with the latest features and techniques. So let's jump into the world of Next.js 13.4. I am going to use VS Code Editor. You can use whatever you prefer. And then I am going to start with new folder, and it's completely empty folder on my desktop. I am going to name it Next Crash Course. Once you created, you can drag and drop it to your empty Visual Studio Code window inside of here. Now open up terminal, or you can press Ctrl backtick, and we are going to type npx create-next-app latest. Now obviously, in order to run that command, you are going to need to have Node.js installed on your computer. So make sure you have Node.js installed. Let's go ahead and run that. We should get some questions. What is your project name? I am going to use this directory, so let's type dot. And then if we want to use TypeScript, I am going to say no to that. ESLint say no, just want to keep this simple. We want to use Tailwind CSS, so let's say yes. We will say no to having a source directory, and then yes for app router. We want to use alias. Now what we will do is run the dev server. So let's type npm run dev. Now in your browser, just visit localhost:3000, and there you have it, beautiful, our home page. Back to our code. Let's go into the app folder and then page.js file, and everything you can see here is coming from here. I am going to remove everything inside this file. Now type RAFCE, press enter. Let's say home page. We don't need this line. Inside this div, let's have an h1 tag. In here, let's say home page. Give it a class name equal to text-4xl because we are using Tailwind CSS. Below that h1 tag, let's have a paragraph tag. Give it a class name equal to py-10, and inside this paragraph tag I am going to add some dummy text. Now save it. Let's go into our global.css file, and let's remove everything in here, but we need these 3 lines because we are going to use Tailwind CSS. Now save it. Back in the browser, now you can see our title and paragraph. Now I want to talk about routing, because this is probably one of the biggest changes in Next.js. Imagine we want to create an about page like that. Now if I want to do this in this version of Next.js, I would create a folder called about inside app folder. So let's do this. About. Inside this about folder, I want to create page.jsx file. It is important and really important for you to call it page.jsx because this is how Next.js will identify that this is supposed to be a page or a route, and the way they are gonna get the name of the route is based on the folder as you can see over here. Now this is our home page. Let's go into our page.js file, or we can rename it page.jsx. Now copy everything from here. Let's go into our about and then page.jsx file and paste it right here. Let's just change the name of our function. We can say about page. In here let's say about page, and paragraph we can say this is our about page. Now save it, and this is done. There is no need to worry about managing routes or setting up a separate folder for them. Everything is already set up for us. Back in the browser, and then up in your address bar, you can visit /about on the end of the URL. Beautiful, you can see that it is displayed exactly what we put on that page.jsx file. So this is a major change into Next.js. Now the question is how we can link between those two pages. Like how could we have a link on the home page that you click on to visit /about. So let's go to our home page and imagine we want to add a link below the paragraph that links to the about page. So up at the top we are going to import a tool from Next.js. We are going to say import link from next/link. Now we can use the link tool. So in here let's say link about page, give it a href value equal to /about. Now save it. Let's test this out. Nice, it's working. Again in our about page, let's have a link back to the home page. So let's go our about and then page.js file, and up at the top here we can say import link from next/link. Below that paragraph tag let's say link homepage, give it a ref value equal to only /, that means homepage. Now save it. Let's test this out. Now we can jump back and forth. Now I want to create a nested route that is extension of the about route, like /FAQ. To achieve that, I am going to create a folder inside about folder called FAQ, and inside this FAQ folder I am going to create a file called page.jsx. Now let's copy everything from here and paste it right here. We don't need this link and paragraph, so I am going to remove those link and paragraph. Let's change the function name FAQ. We don't need this link, and in here let's say this is our FAQ page. Now save it. Now we can come inside our website, and if we will go to the /about/FAQ, you will see the FAQ page. Now I want to show you how to create a dynamic route. Imagine we want to have an ID or something like this. To achieve that, inside our about folder, we are going to create a new folder. First we want square bracket, and then inside this square bracket, let's say ID. Make sure you are using square bracket, and then I am going to create page.jsx file. Let's copy everything from this page and paste it right here. I am going to change our function name. Let's say dynamic page. In here, let's say params, just like this. Let's remove that paragraph, and inside this h1 tag, let's say this is the about page with id colon params.id. Now save it. Now if we come over here and we try to go to the about page /1, you will see that it will say id 1. Let's change it to 5. You will see that it would change to 5. So this is dynamic changing based on the URL. Now I want to add a navbar. But the question is, how do we display inside of every single page, like home page, about page, and so on? Well, to achieve that, let's go into the layout.js file, and inside this body element and above the children, let's have an h1 tag. In here, let's say header, give it a class equal to text-xl. Now save it. Now you can see the header text inside of every single page. That's very nice. Let's create the actual navbar. I am going to remove this h1 tag. Let's have a new div, and I am going to move the children props inside that div, and that div is going to have a class name equal to max with 4xl, mx-auto, and px-5. Now I want to create a component folder. So let's say component and then header.js file, type RAFCE. For now, in here let's say navbar. Now save it. Let's go into our layout.js file. I am going to import header component. So above at the top right here, let's say import header from ./components/header. Inside this div, let's say header self-closing tag. Now save it. You can see the maximum width and the navbar, which is coming from here. Now let's create our actual navbar. We don't need this line. In here, let's say import link from next/link. I want to create an array of nav items. So in here, let's say constant nav items equal to array, and then object label colon home href / let's duplicate this object. This one will be about, ref will be /about, this will be FAQ, and ref will be about/FAQ. We don't need this text. Inside that div, let's have an UL tag. Now I want to render nav items. So in here, let's say nav items dot map link index arrow function. Let's have a list item, give it a key equal to index, which is coming from here. Inside this, I will add a link element. In here, let's say link dot label, and the href will be link dot href. Now save it. Back in the browser. Now you can see it's working perfectly. Let's add some CSS. In here, let's say class name equal to flex gap 5 py-10. Now save it. Now it's looking nice. Let's make it clear which page you have currently visited by adding an active class. To achieve that, we can create a CSS class for the matching URL path. In the link element, simply use the class name attribute. If the URL matches, add the active class, or you can use instead of using empty string. Now how do we check the current URL path? Well, it's simple. We can utilize something called usePathName. Okay, let me show you what I mean. Up at the top, let's import usePathName from Next/navigation. Inside this header function, let's say constant pathname equal to usePathName parenthesis. I will scroll down, and in here let's say curly brackets, and inside it let's say if the pathname equal to link.href, then output will be text blue 500 and font bold, otherwise our output will be nothing. Now save it. Okay, now you can see an error. We have to add use client. So let's copy this one, and at the top right here just paste it. Now save it again. Now we are not getting any error. Also, you will notice that the page you are currently on has a darker blue and bold text. Now if I click on this about Navbar item, you can see it's dark blue and text bold. Now the question is why we got the error, because this is not server component, this is client component. So we have to mention that this is client component by adding use client. Now if you want to know more about client component and server component, open up a new tab and go to Next.js.org. Now click on this Get Started button and then React Essentials. I will scroll down, and here you will get when to use server and client components. You can read this section to know more about server component and client component. Now we will learn how to change font family. Back to our code, let's go into our layout.js file. Now I want to use Poppins font, so in here let's say Poppins. Let's change it to Poppins. In here let's say Poppins, which is coming from here, and we can add here on more property like weight colon square bracket, and then font weight will be 400, 600 and 700. Now let's copy these Poppins and paste it right here. Now save it, and you can see our Poppins font. Also we can add some metadata, like we can change the title name here. Back to our code, in here let's say Next.js crash course generated by lightcode. Now save it. Now you can see the title is Next.js crash course. Sorry for the spelling mistake. And finally we can add footer section. So below that children props, we can add footer self closing tag, and at the top let's duplicate this line, and in here let's say footer from .components/footer. Let's create this component. So inside this components folder, let's create a footer file. Now type RAFCE, press enter. We don't need this line anymore. Inside this div, let's say all rights reserved, and that div is going to have a class name equal to py-10 text will be center. Now save it. Also let's go into our layout.js file and save this file. Now you can see footer text inside of every single page. Now I will show you how to fetch data. I will create another route called post. So inside this app directory, let's have a new folder called posts and then a file called page.jsx. Now type RAFCE, press enter. Let's say posts. We don't need this line anymore. Now save it. Let's go into our header.jsx file. I will create a new nav item. Label will be post and href will be /post. Now save it. Back in the browser, you can see a new nav item. Just click on it and you can see a new page. Now I am going to use fake data. So open up a new tab and go to jsonplaceholder.tpcode.com. I will scroll down, click on this link and you can see fake data. And here is the URL. We are going to use that URL. So let's copy that URL. I will leave the link in the description. It's a free API which just gives us like fake data. So we can test inside of our project. We can create a function up right here. So let's say asynchronous function get post data. Inside this function, let's say constant res to get a response from the API request. We will say await fetch and we will put the link to the API inside of here like this, and I am going to return like this, return res.json. Now how do I access this data inside of our application? Well, since this is a new version of Next.js, what I can do now is I can actually make this function asynchronous. So let's say asynchronous, and in here let's say post equal to await get post data. Now we have access to this post. We don't need this text anymore. So let's get rid this text. Inside this div, let's have an h1 tag. In here let's say post page. Give it a class name equal to text-4xl. Below that, let's have an unordered list and then post.map post arrow function. At the top right here, I am going to import link. So let's say import link from next/link, and in here let's use it. So let's say link, give it a key equal to post.id, href will be /post/$post.id. Inside it, let's have a list item, and that list item is going to have a class name equal to bg-gray100 p-5, and cursor will be pointer. Inside it, let's have an h4 tag. In here let's say post.title, and that h4 tag is going to have a class name equal to text-xl, font will be bold. Below that, let's have a paragraph tag, and in here let's say post.body. I want to add some style for the unordered list, so let's say class name equal to flex call and gap 5. Now save it, and you can see a list of posts is being displayed in our screen, and this is great. One thing that is actually cool as well is that there is also a loading component that we can put. Okay, let me show you what I mean. We can just come over here and create a new file called loading.jsx. Now type RAFCE, press enter, and let's say that while the data is loading, I just want to say loading ... Remove this line and save it. Now reload the page. We could not see loading because it happens quickly. Let's go into our page.jsx file. I will scroll up, and in here let's say await new promise resolve, and then arrow function set time out resolve, 3000. That means wait 3 seconds. Now save it. Now reload this page. Now you can see loading, which is coming from here. Now imagine there is an error in any of these. Like if I were to delete something from here from the API in this way, and obviously this will throw an error because it should throw an error, right? This is not a legit API to be fetching data. If I save it, so as you can see over here, it will give us an unhandled runtime error because there was an error in the fetching. We don't want to display this to the users. We want to display a customized message saying that there was an error. Now the way we do this with this version of actions is we can actually just create an error.jsx file inside of this route. So let's create error.jsx. Now type RAFCE, press enter. We don't need this line anymore. In here let's say use client because we want to turn them into client component, and in here let's say there is a data fetching error. Now save it. Now you can see our customized error message, which is coming from here. Let's go into our page.jsx file, and I will come over here and actually replace this back to what it was before. Now save it. Back in the browser. Now it's looking nice again. Now one thing I want to show you, we can actually fetch multiple data at once. Like I can actually create another function over here. So I will say get users data, and this API does have users endpoint as well. So let's try to get both of them at once. So the way I am going to do is I am going to use promise. So let me show you what I mean. In here let's say constant. We will first try to get the post and then the users as an array like this, and then let's say await promise.all. Now we can put the functions over here to request the data in the order that we want to receive on the left. So first we want to say get post data, get users data. So we are fetching two different APIs or two different endpoints in the same server component. Now we can render our users data. So in this div, below this h1 tag, let's have an h2 tag. In here let's say users, give it a class name equal to text-2xl. Below that h1 tag, let's say users.map user index arrow function. Inside this arrow function, let's have a paragraph tag and in here let's say user.name, and the key will be index. Now save the changes. Now you can see our user's name and then the post. That means users API and post API are working perfectly. Now let's just start working on the API part. So the backend building will be using the Prisma, so it makes easier to work with any type of database, whether it's SQL or no SQL. So let's just move on step by step. So open up terminal and press Ctrl C and type npm install prisma save-dev. Press enter. It will be a development dependency. Now we want to install Prisma client. So let's say npm install prisma/client. After that we want to initialize the Prisma to our application. So let's type npx prisma init. So it will initialize the Prisma to our application, and you can see once you run this, now we will be having the Prisma folder here, and inside the Prisma folder you can see we have the schema file in which we will be having a schema. Let's run our application, npm run dev, and there you can see we have the client and we have the database. So what we want to do is, here the database provider would be the MongoDB, because we are going to use MongoDB database. Save it. Now you can see inside this environment we need to pass in the database URL, which is coming from here. So we need to change the database URL from here. Now open up a new tab and go to mongodb.com. Let me just sign in. So click on the sign in button. I will type my credential. Once you log in, that brings you to the dashboard. Let's create a database by clicking build a database button. Choose free option. I will scroll down. You can choose cluster name, whatever you want, and then click on this create button. Now we have to create username, so I would say lightcode, and then the password will be lightcode123. Now click on this create user button. I will scroll down and I want to add IP address. In here let's say 0.0.0.0 and then /0. Description will be all. Now add entry and click on this finish and close button. Go to database and then click on this connect button and then MongoDB for VS Code. Let's copy this URL back to our code. Let's remove this URL and paste MongoDB URL. I will replace this password using my username password. So let's say lightcode123, and after this slash icon let's say next crash course. Now save it and close it up. Now we want to create our model. So in here let's say model post curly brackets. We will be having the ID, and the ID would be part of the string. So let's say string, and then we'll be having the default ID as well, because the MongoDB creates a default ID. So let's say ID space default auto. After that we want to map this ID, because inside the MongoDB we have the ID with the underscore ID. So let's say map underscore ID, and finally we want to provide the map expressions as well. So that should be db.objectID. Below that we can have the title as well. So the title should be part of the string. We can have the description and it will also be the part of the string. We can have the created at, and that should be part of the date time. So in here let's say date time default now. So created at would be automatically created as the current time stamp from the now. Below that we can have the updated at, and that should be part of the date time. Now save it. So you can see that's how the post model will work. Now we want to sync our application to the database. Now press Ctrl C and let's type npx Prisma generate. So it will just generate the schema. So you can see the Prisma schema are loaded, and after that now we want to push this schema to the database. So let's type npx Prisma db push, which will push the schema to the database. Allow access. Go to the MongoDB page and click on this browse collections, and you can see the database. You can see here next crash course, which is coming from here. Also you can see post, which is coming from here. For now there is no data because we don't have any data. So we want to work next step. In this terminal let's say npm run dev. I want to first create a libs folder inside app folder. So let's say libs. Inside it let's have a prismadb.js file. Okay, inside of my prismadb I will import Prisma client. So let's say import Prisma client from Prisma/client. Below that I will declare my Prisma globally, and I will use whenever I need inside of my application. So in here let's say constant client equal to global this dot Prisma, or I am going to add new Prisma client instance. So the reason why I am doing this, I don't want to add Prisma client in every stage of my application. So below that let's say if process.env dot node_env is not equal to production, then global this dot Prisma will be client. Now finally I am going to export client. So let's say export default client. Now save it and close it up. Now let's just move on to this app folder, and inside it I want to create an API folder, and inside this API folder let's have a post folder, and finally route.js file. It is important and really important for you to call it route.js, because this is how Next.js will identify that. So you can make a request to the localhost/API/post. So our URL would be just like this. So let's go ahead and let's define some routes over here. First I want to create post request. So at first I want to import Prisma from prismadb we just created. So let's say import Prisma from app/libs/prismadb. Below that I want to import next response. So let's say import next response from next/server. First I want to create post request. So let's say export const post equal to asynchronous function. In here let's say request arrow function. Now inside the post we need to get some data from the body, and from the body we can get the title and description. So in here first we want to add try catch method. In here let's say constant body equal to await request dot json. Below that we can get the title and the description from the body. So let's say constant title comma description equal to body. Below that let's say constant new post equal to await prisma dot post dot create. Now we need to pass the title and the description to the data. So let's say data title comma description, and finally we want to return next response dot json new post, and inside this catch error we want to return next response dot json message will be post error comma error, and status will be 500. Now save it. Now we can test this request. To test our request you can use Postman, but I am going to use a VS Code extension called Thunder Client. So you can use Postman or VS Code extension. Back to our code. Now click on this extensions button and search for Thunder Client. Here is the extension I am talking. Just install it. After installing you will get a icon on the left side. Just click on it. I will create a new request. Let's go into our route.js file. I will scroll up. Let's copy this URL. Let's go into the new request tab and just paste it here. This is our post request, so select post and then click on this body tag. Now we want to pass the title and the description. So let's say title would be this is a title, and the description this is first description. Now we can click on this send button. Okay, we are getting error. That should be localhost. Let's test this again, and you can see we successfully created our new post. Let's go to our database and refresh it, and also you can see our new post is here. So everything seems to be working perfectly, and you can see we have successfully created a post. Let's create more posts. So in here let's say title 2, and this is second description. Send it. Let's say title 3 and third description. Again let's say title 4 and fourth description. Back in the browser, refresh it, and you can see there are 4 posts. Now in this position our post request is complete. Now we can focus on our get request. So let's go to our route.js file, and I am going to copy this post request, and below that I am going to paste it. In here let's say get. We don't need this request, we don't need this body, also we don't need this data. In here let's say find many. In here let's say post, and error message would be get error. Now save it. Let's go to our Thunder client and select get request, send it, and you can see we are getting the records. Let's create another record. Let's say title 5 fifth description, send it. Now select get request, send it. I will scroll down, and you can see our last post. So everything seems to be working perfectly. Now the get and the post request is complete. Now we want a dynamic ID, because now the further request get a post by its ID and delete a post by its ID. Also update a post by its ID. So for that we need the ID. So what we can do is we can create a dynamic route. So let's create a dynamic route. So inside this post folder I will create a new folder. Let's say square bracket, and inside it let's say ID, and then route.js file. let's go into our post and then route.js file. I will scroll up. We need those lines, so I am going to copy those 3 lines. Let's go into our API post ID and then route.js file, and in here I am going to paste those 3 lines. And in here URL would be localhost/API/post/12345, just like this. That should be localhost, and also in here that should be localhost. Now save it. First I want to create get request, so let's go into our post and then route.js file. I will scroll down. I am going to copy this get request and paste it right here. Now first we want to get the dynamic ID. So the question is, how can we get the dynamic ID? Well, we can get the dynamic ID from params. Okay, let me show you what I mean. In here, let's say request comma params, just like this. Inside this try method we can say constant id equal to params. Here let's say post and then prisma.post.find unique. Inside it let's say where id colon id, or we can write only id, just like this. Below that, if not post, which is coming from here, then return next response.json. Message will be post not found, and then error, and the status will be 404. Otherwise return next.json post. Now save the changes. Let's test this out. Let's go into our Thunder client, create a new request. In here you can see our all records. So let's try to get first records. Let's copy this URL and paste it here, and then let's copy this ID and paste it right here. Now send it. You can see our first post. If you want to get second post or third post, let's copy this ID and paste it right here, send it, and you can see our third post. Next, let's create update request. So let's go into our post.route.js file. I will scroll up. I am going to copy post request from here, and below this get request I am going to paste that post request. Post should be patch. We want to get ID, so let's say params. Below that title and description, let's say constant ID equal to params. Let's change it to update post. Create should be update, and inside it we will add where id equal to id. Make sure you add comma here. Now I will scroll up. Let's copy this logic. I will scroll down and paste it right here. In here let's say if not update post, and return should be update post. Message would be update error. Now save it. Let's test this out. Select patch request. Click on this body tag. Now I want to change title, so let's say title would be title 3 updated. Now send it. You can see title 3 updated. Let's check our all record. I will scroll down and you can see title 3 updated. Back in the browser, just refresh it, and in here also you can see title 3 updated. So everything is working perfectly. And finally we want to create delete request. Back to our code. Let's go into our post id and then route.js file. I will scroll up. Let's copy the get request. I will scroll down, and below that patch request I am going to paste it. Let's change it to delete. We don't need this anymore. Here we can say delete. Also we don't need this logic. And in here let's say post has been deleted, and in here let's say message will be delete error, and this is done. Now save it. Let's test this out. Select delete request. We want to delete title 3 updated, so let's send it, and you can see the message post has been deleted. Let's check our all record, send it, and you can see there is no title 3 updated post. Back in the browser, refresh it, and here also you cannot see title 3 updated post. So everything is working perfectly, and in this position our API part is complete. Okay, first I want to create a CRUD folder inside our app folder. So let's say CRUD and then page.js file. Now type RAFCE, press enter. Let's say CRUD. Now save it. Let's add a nav item inside our header.jsx file. I am going to duplicate this one. Label would be CRUD. href would be /CRUD. Now save it. Back in the browser. Now you can see CRUD item. Back to our code. We don't need this text anymore, so I'm going to delete that, and that div is going to have a class name equal to, let's do maximum width. I'm going to say 4xl. I'm going to put it into the center, so I can say mx, which is margin horizontally, to auto. Okay, I am going to add margin top to 4. Inside it, let's have a new div, and that div is going to have a class name equal to, I want to add margin vertically, so I am going to set it to 5. Display will be flex, let's say flex column, and gap 4. Inside it, let's have an h1 tag. In here, let's say to do list app, and that h1 tag is going to have a class name equal to text 3xl and font bold. This h1 is basically like the title. Now save it. Back in the browser. Now you can see to do list app title. Down here I am going to put another component called add post self closing tag. We don't have that component, so I am going to create add post component into the components folder. So in here let's say add post.jsx. Now type RAFCE, press enter. Save it. Let's go into the CRUD and page.jsx file. I'm going to import add post component. We don't need this line. And in here let's say import add post from /component/ add post. Now save it. You can see add post text which is coming from here. Let's remove this, and I am going to render a button. In here let's say add new post. Give it a class name equal to bg-blue-700, text white, padding 3, and cursor will be pointer. Now save it. Back in the browser. Now you can see our button. Back to our code. Now down here we want to add component called post list. We don't have this component, so I want to create that component inside component folder. So let's say post list.jsx, type RAFCE, press enter. Now save it. I am going to import that component inside here. So let's say import post list from /components/post list. Now save it, and you can see post list text. Now we can create our actual post list here, which will be coming from the database. So right here I am going to create asynchronous function. Let's say get data, And of course I am going to create a variable called res equal to await fetch, and then I want to add URL here. So let's go into our API folder and then route.js file. Let's copy this URL and paste it right here. Below that, let's say if not res.ok, then throw new error, failed to fetch data, and finally I will return res.json. Now I want to make this function asynchronous, and inside it let's say constant post equal to await get data. Now if I console log the post, we should be able to see the data. Now save it. This is server component, so I think we can see that into the terminal. And here we go. We have the value here. So now what we can do is I am going to send the post into the post list component. So let's say post equal to post. Now save it. Let's go into the post list.jsx file. I want to destruct post like this. Now we can set up map. So post.map, and then we can get the individual post inside in here. I want to create a new component. Let's say post self closing tag, and in here let's say key equal to post.id and post equal to curly brackets post. Now we need to create the post component. So let's go into our component folder and then let's have a post.jsx file, type RAFCE, press enter. Now save it. Let's go into the post list.jsx file. I am going to import post component. So let's say import post from /components/post. Now save it. Let's go into the post.jsx file. I want to destruct post like that. Okay, let's change it to UL tag. Now save it, and in here let's add list item. We don't need this post text anymore. That list item is going to have a class name equal to p-3 moy-5 bg-slate-200, and key will be post.id. Inside it let's have an h1 tag. In here let's say post.title. Give it a class name equal to text-2xl, and font will be bold. Below that h1 tag let's have a paragraph tag, and in here let's say post.description. Now save it. Now you can see our post list which is coming from our database. Now what we need to do is I want to create a modal. I want to display a modal when I click on this button. So let's create a modal. Inside this components folder let's have a file called modal.jsx. Now type RAFCE, press enter. We don't need this line. We don't need this text too. Give it a class name equal to bg-black50. Position will be fixed in set 0. Inside it let's have one more div, and that div is going to have a class name equal to display will be flex, justify center, item center, and height will be full. Inside that div let's have one more div, and that div is going to have a class name equal to display will be flex column, items int, bg-slate300 with 50%, and I want to add padding, so let's say p-5. Inside it let's have a button tag, and that button tag is going to have a class name equal to text-2xl. I want to add margin bottom, so let's say mb-3. Inside it, let's add close icon, and inside this div I want to add children props, which will be coming from here. Now save it. Let's go into the add post.jsx file. First I want to import modal, so in here let's say import modal from ./modal, and below that button tag right here let's say modal. For now in here let's say modal goes here. Now save it. Now you can see our modal. We need to add a state that will handle the modal pop-up. So here I am going to create a variable which is state, and I am going to call this modal open, set modal open, and that equals to use state. Make sure you import use state, and by default it should be false. Now we need to send this modal open into the modal component. So in here let's say modal open equal to curly brackets modal open. Also we need to send set modal open, so I am going to copy that and I am going to send that into the modal component. And in here on the button tag I want to add on click event arrow function, and set modal open will be true. Now save it. Let's go into the modal.jsx file. First I am going to destruct modal open, so let's say modal open. Also I want to destruct set modal open. Now when the modal open is true, then we want to render this div, so I am going to cut that div, and in here let's say whenever modal open, only for that I want to render our div. Now save it. We are getting error because we import this use state, so this component is the client component, so in here we have to say use space client. Now save it. Now we are not getting any error. Let's test this out. If I click on this button, you can see our modal. Now I want to hide this modal by clicking on this close button. Back to our code. Let's copy this on click event. Let's go into the modal.jsx file, and inside here in the button tag I am going to paste that click event, and in here let's say false. Now save it. Back in the browser, let's test this out. So everything looks working perfectly. Back to our code. Let's go into the add post.js file, and in here I am going to create form tag. So let's say form. We don't need this action. Give it a class name equal to width will be full. In here let's have an h1 tag, and in here let's say add new post. Give it a class name equal to text-2xl pb-3. Below that I want to add input tag. Placeholder will be title. Name will be title. Give it a class name equal to width will be full, and I want to add padding. I am going to add on more input tag, so let's copy this input tag and paste it below. In here placeholder will be description and name will be description, and in here I want to add margin vertically to my5. Below that input tag I want to add a button tag. In here let's say submit, and type will be submit. Give it a class name equal to bg-blue-700. Text will be white, px5 and py2. I will scroll up, and inside this form tag I am going to handle the on submit event. So in here let's say on submit equal to handle submit. Let's copy that function name and up here we can say const handle submit equal to, I am going to grab the event here and then arrow function. I want to say e.prevent default, and the next thing is I am going to create a state. So in here let's say const inputs comma set inputs equal to use state and then empty object. I will scroll down and inside this input I will say value equal to inputs.title or empty string. Below that I want to add onChange event. In here let's say handle change function. I am going to copy those value and onChange and paste it right here. In here value will be inputs.description. Let's copy this handle change function. I will scroll up and below that handle submit function let's say constant handle change equal to arrow function. First I want to target the name, so let's say constant name equal to e.target.name and then value, so let's say constant value equal to e.target.value, and then I want to set them, so let's say set inputs prev state arrow function prev state and then name value. Alright, so now here I just want to console.log inputs just like that. Now save it. Let's go to the console tool. Now I am going to click on this button and in here let's say title and then description. Now hit enter and as you can see we have this title and the description, but of course I need to reset the values. Back in the browser and in here let's say set inputs empty object. Now save it. So again let's test this out. In here let's say title and then description goes here. Now if I click that it should be gone. Okay, it's working. Now we need to add our API. So to do that I want to add Axios. So on our terminal let's say npm I, which is short for install Axios. Let's run our server again. First I am going to import Axios, so let's say import Axios from Axios, and inside this handle submit function let's say Axios dot post and then slash API slash post comma inputs, then res arrow function console.log res dot catch error console.log error, and finally we want to add let's say set inputs, and I want to hide our modal, so let's say set modal open false. Now save it. So let's test this out. In here let's say title 1 and description 1. Now click on submit button. Well, as you can see the new post is not right here. So what is problem? Open up a new terminal and go to Next.js.org. Click on this get started button and then data fetching and fetching. I will scroll down. Here you can see static data fetching. We need dynamic data fetching. So basically we are going to use the dynamic data fetching. So we need to add this catch no store into the fetching data. So I am going to copy this one. Let's go into the CRUD and paste.jsx file. I will scroll up and in here let's say comma and then paste it. Now save it. Let's test this again. Let's say title 101 and description 101. Now submit. We don't see the value until we refresh. Now you can see here. So what we need to do is basically we need to refresh the browser, right? So first I am going to import use router. So let's say import use router from next/navigation. So inside this add post we can say constant router equal to use router. Now we can use this router. So I'll scroll down and in here let's say router.refresh. Now save it. Now let's test this out again. In here let's say using router and I want to add some description. Now hit enter and you can see at the bottom we have our new post. So our add new post is working perfectly. Now we can focus to edit post. Let's go into the post.jsx file. Below that paragraph I want to add button tag. So let's say div and that div is going to have a class name equal to pt-5. Inside it let's have an edit button tag. So let's say button. In here let's say edit, give it a class name equal to text blue 700. I want to add margin right, so let's say mr3. Also I want to add delete button, so I am going to duplicate this button and in here let's say delete. Text should be red. Now save it. So now when we click on this edit button it should be showing the pop-up. So now let's create the modal. I am just going to copy the modal from the add post. So let's copy that modal and I am going to put that modal right here. If I save it, of course we get a lot of error because we don't have modal open, set modal and so on. So let's do that step by step. I will scroll up and first I want to import modal. So let's say import modal from ./modal and inside this post function I am going to create a state. So let's say constant open modal edit and then set open modal edit equals to use state. By default it should be false. Make sure you import use state. Below that let's say constant post to edit comma set post to edit equal to use state. By default it should be post, which is coming from here. We need to send open modal edit in here. Also we need to send set open modal edit in here. Also this function here I am going to change that to handle edit submit and let's create a function up here. Let's say const handle edit submit equal to arrow function. For now just put like so. I will scroll down. Next thing is the value. So in here let's say post to edit. Also in here let's say post to edit. We want to create handle change function up here, or we can just copy from add post. So I will scroll up and let's copy handle change function and paste it right here, and in here let's say set post to edit, and again we can copy handle submit function from add post. So let's copy this arrow function and paste it right here. We need to change something. So in here let's say patch and URL should be /API/post and then /. Let's change it to backtick and then I want to add ID. So let's say post.id and this post is coming from here, and inputs should be post to edit. We don't need this anymore, so I am going to delete this one. I will scroll up, and here I have to import Axios, so let's say import Axios from Axios. Below that, let's say import use router from next/navigation, and inside this post function, let's say constant router equal to use router. Now save the changes. Okay, we are getting error because this is our client component, so we have to mention that. So in here, let's say use client. Now save it. Now I am going to click on this edit button, and nothing happened because we have to add on click event. So I will scroll down, and in here, let's say on click arrow function, and then set open modal edit. That should be true. Now save it. Alright, I think it should be working, and it's working. As you can see the value right here, and I think it's working perfectly. So let's update it. Let's say title to updated. Now hit enter. We are getting error, set modal open is not defined. Back to our code. I will scroll up, and that should be set open modal edit. Now save it. Okay, let's test again. I am going to change it to title changed, and this is first description updated. Now hit enter, or you can click on the submit button, and as you can see, it's update automatically, so it's working perfectly. Now we can focus to delete our post. First I want to create use state, so in here let's say const open modal delete comma set open modal delete equal to use state. By default it should be false. I will scroll down, and below that delete button I want to add modal component, and in here modal open will be open modal delete, and set modal open will be set open modal delete. Inside it, let's have an h1 tag, and in here let's say are you sure you want to delete this post, and that h1 tag is going to have a class name equal to text-2xl pb-3. Below that h1 tag, let's have a div, and inside it let's have a button tag. In here let's say yes, and that button tag is going to have a class name equal to text-blue-700 font bold and margin right 5. Let's duplicate this button tag, and in here let's say no, text should be red. For the first button tag I want to add on click event, so let's say on click equal to arrow function, and I am going to name it handle delete post, and I want to send post id, so let's say post.id. Also here I want to hide that modal, so let's say on click set open modal delete, and that should be false. Let's copy this on click event. I will scroll up, and for this button, when I will click this button tag, I want to show pop-up, so let's say on click set open modal delete, and that should be true. Finally we have to create this function, so I am going to copy this function name, and I am going to create up here, let's say constant handle delete post arrow function. I want to grab the id, so in here let's say id. So basically in this function it's really similar like this function. So I am going to copy all of this. I will scroll down and paste that right here. In here, let's change it to delete. We can say here only ID, which is coming from here. We don't need this post to edit, and this is done. Now save it. Okay, we are getting error. Back to our code. I will scroll down, and in here we need to add arrow function, and again here we need to add arrow function. Now save it. Now we are not getting any error. Now I am going to click on this delete button. Click yes, it should be gone, and it's gone. Let's click that again. Alright, it's working perfectly. So let's create again final title, final description, hit enter, and you can see final title here. Let's edit it. Final title updated. Here also let's say updated, and it's working. Let's delete it. Yes. So everything is working perfectly. Our Next.js crash course is complete. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe our channel.